I'm delighted to welcome Aaron Sigmond to the Cigar Keep Zoom room. I mean, I guess, we have a smoking room. This is not it. This is just for you and me.
No.
We are alone here, currently not smoking because when we're sort of in our own little...
Holding.
Yeah. We always have something on us. But I'm delighted because, you and I have been in touch over the years or something. I feel like, we sort of cross paths a lot, but I've never really gotten to talk to you about cigars at length. And this is such a great opportunity because obviously Cigar Keep is new and Cigar Keep is all about bringing the community together. And you have played a huge part in the kind of community development across the world, whether that be through your own communications or of course your books, which we can talk about. So thank you so much.
Right. No, it's my pleasure. I like getting in on the ground level. I just feel like, we're here together now, and 10 years from now, I may not, have this opportunity. So thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it. We should explain why you were in your study, I'm guessing, or living room, and I am in my boudoir, such as it is. So I tested positive for COVID a week ago. It's not much of a secret. I announced it on my Instagram because I'm a rather prolific Instagrammer, for lack of a better description. And I kind of run rather quiet the last, but I'm better. I'm definitely on the mends. We're on the kind of tail end of it, but I'm still quarantining from my wife and daughter who are living in the downstairs half of the house, and I am in the upstairs half of the house, which is one of the other reasons, because unlike you, I have a cigar-friendly household, but not in the bedroom and not kind of locked away. And I don't think the doctor would give me the green light to do it. So anyway, not to belabor the point, but that's why we are where we are.
Delightful. Well, here we are, and I'm very excited. And of course, we're here largely, although we're going to sort of sidetrack probably, because that's sort of my métier. We're to talk about the 4th of July celebrations that are coming up, because I know, despite not ever being in America for it, that it is a great cigar occasion. And I just wanted to get a leading light's thoughts on the day, firstly, because for us neophytes in the UK, we don't really understand the 4th of July. We sort of forget about it.
You lost. You got to know that part. Oh, there goes the colonies.
I know. It's where it all started, for God's sake. But so
you can have us back personally at this juncture. I'm good with that.
Fair enough.
We like the Queen. She's lovely.
No, she's super and had a great jubilee. Yeah. But could you explain the 4th of July to us? As in, obviously the history is fairly well known, but what the day tends to involve, and how cigars sort of find their way into it.
Right. So you really have to kind of look at the U.S. summer season, as it were, on the whole. And you have Memorial Day at the very end of May. You have July 4th. We'll get to that in a second. In the middle of the summer-ish, and then you have Labor Day at the very, very end. Yeah. And Memorial Day and Labor Day are kind of these bookends. They're the official, unofficial U.S. start and stop of the summer season. And in the middle of all that, you have July 4th, or as we call it, Independence Day, or as we also call it, Sayonara UK Day. Nobody really calls it that, but probably should. I think I'm starting something here. And all of these holidays are celebrated very much outdoors. So a lot of barbecues, a lot of hot dogs, originally from Germany, and a lot of hamburgers, probably originally from someplace else, I would venture to guess, and French fries, which really aren't French, but obviously from someplace else. But nonetheless, we call it our own, and 4th of July. So because all these things are outdoor holidays, cigars just kind of go part and parcel with it. And then, of course, there's bountiful, conspicuous, copious amounts of bourbon, a nice American spirit, the odd other whiskey, and wine. So you have all these things, and a barbecue and bourbon. What's going to pair better with all that than a cigar? So there isn't all of these things kind of collectively go with, I know you wanted to focus on just July 4th, but the fact of the matter is summer in general, as I've both participated in and observed in the UK, the weather is beautiful. You can smoke outdoors. Why not? You know, it's not something that's really pushed, I suppose. It's just a fait accompli. It's just a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. And I mean, do you, because I mean, for example, when my anniversary is coming up, I tend to have a cigar that I spot 6 months earlier, and I think I won't spend that now. I'll have that. Do you have a sort of a routine or a sort of a ritual like that where you keep the good one aside for 4th of July?
For 4th of July, not really. It's not like New Year's or Christmas or a birthday cigar or an anniversary cigar. It really isn't. Now, on the flip side of that, let's talk a second about patriotic cigars. Over the years, and I'm talking about several centuries, there have been a number of patriotic kind of positioned cigars. One of them was called Honest Abe for Abraham Lincoln. One was just called George Washington, but they abbreviated George. There was the Uncle Sam cigar, which was very popular for a very long time. But even today, in today's marketplace, there are a number of kind of patriotic cigars that really kind of do the job. I don't know if you intersplice. I haven't watched any of your Zoom calls, but you can put up a photo. I don't have any photos.
You're the first.
I'm really on the ground level.
Yeah, you're the kind of
I'm the guinea pig. I'm the canary in the coal mine. Take your pick. Yeah. So my favorite kind of patriotic cigar right now is called literally the American. And what's amazing about it, I know, in a burst of originality, but this is fascinating because it is a true American puro. The binder, the filler, and the wrapper all originate and the cigar is rolled here in the United States. Highly unusual, not just at this juncture, really at any juncture. So the wrapper actually comes from Florida. The binder is from Pennsylvania, and I believe Pennsylvania and Connecticut, which is famous for its tobacco, make up the filler. So it's a very unusual, but it has a very flag-like. You should really intersperse some images. Since I'm the first, I'll give you some.
We will do. We'll
yeah. Okay. There you go. You've got a whole team. I mean.
Yeah.
Sure.
You're
you. So that's a fantastic. Then there's a range over here called CAO. They have a Brazil cigar, they have an Italian cigar, and they also have an American cigar. And there are just others. There are a couple others. The American is my favorite. Oh, and then there are cigars that are just made here in the U.S. I think people tend to forget that at one point in time we were quite the cigar producing nation, and there's still a number of boutique factories, real factories, not just a single roller, but multiple rollers here in the U.S. The American is made at one such factory, but there are other ones, like actually not this particular cigar, but La Polina has a number of cigars made at a factory called El Titan de Bronze, and that's down in Miami. So there's another one in Florida called Moore and Baudet. They're great.
I seem to have heard that the numbers were astronomical at one point in terms of output from America. Why don't you tell us a bit about that?
I mean, at the turn of the previous century, 500 million, so think about that, 500 million cigars were premium hand-rolled cigars were produced in Tampa, Florida alone. That had nothing to do with factories in New York,
a year,
Chicago,
or over a certain period of time.
A year. 500 million cigars. To put that in modern context, combined, Cuba and the Dominican Republic do not export that same quantity today by a wide margin, by probably 200 million cigars. So, I mean, it's staggering. I mean, the history of American, so until recently when China took it over, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little scratchy, I apologize.
Okay.
Until China took it over, the US has been the #1 cigar market forever. I mean, for for as long as most anyone could remember, and certainly anyone alive today. And so as a result, they produced a tremendous amount of cigars, which is remarkable in itself as well. And when you really think about the output, at one point in time, think about this. There were 200 cigar factories at one point in time in Tampa, Florida. That's a lot. But in New York City, on the island of Manhattan, at one point in time, there were 1,000 cigar factories. Now, almost all of these were little mom and pop shops. They rolled them, they put them wet down on in the counter or under the counter, and people bought them. But 1,000.
That's amazing.
There were it's remarkable. There were entire trade journals simply dedicated to the Florida and the New York cigar production. That's all they reported on, was the trade and the commerce of cigars and tobacco.
That's fascinating. God, how amazing. And do you find that because I know that state by state, tobacco friendliness is adjusts as you go along.
Right.
Do you find though that the sort of the heritage of cigar smoking, the kind of what you've inherited in terms of the legacy is alive and well, or is it sort of declining?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's yes, even in California, which is perhaps the most anti-smoking state, there are cigar-friendly places. I mean, you can light up a cigar anywhere. I mean, anywhere in the U.S. As far as there's some place in every major city where you can enjoy a cigar and a cocktail. So sure.
Okay, that's
absolutely. I know it's kind of a rudimentary answer, but it's a big topic. I mean, we could have an entire conversation just about that. But really, like New York, there's still plenty of cigar bars, plenty of cigar clubs. Even in LA, you can go to a cigar bar or cigar club. They have different rules state to state. Texas has a lot of cigar bars, as does Florida. It's all good. I mean, you'll get a dirty look, cross look now and again, but I don't think I'm allowed to say bad words, but if I did, it would be something
I think everyone who's watching this is joining in unison with that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, here's the irony, and I really think it's the proper use of the word ironic, which gets a lot of misuse, in my opinion.
I agree.
I can legally smoke a joint, a marijuana cigarette, a spliff, whatever you want to call it, in Central Park. I cannot smoke a cigar in Central Park.
Right.
I find that for a city that once had 1,000 cigar factories and still has like one or two little mom and pop places, ironic.
Yeah, and a tad depressing.
Yeah, to say the very least. Now, you can walk around the perimeter of Central Park, just around the stone wall, and you can have a cigar there because you're on the sidewalk. But inside the park, I think it's a $50 or $60 fine.
God.
Something like that. For the first offense. I'm on like offense like 90. I don't know what my next fine will be. It'll be something.
God, well, I'm very sorry for you.
And not just me, there are a couple others.
As you say, you know where to go as an alternative. But the obviously we sort of Cuban cigar fans over here are looking or staring down the barrel of these new price hikes that have come along. We're also seeing a lot of people turning to New World cigars because of the reliability, the improvement of them. You get brands like Padron that are just as hard to find as a lot of cigars because they're so popular and they're just as good, and you'll be able to smoke all the cigars in the box without being plugged. It's a lot more reliable. How do you think that this is going to play out with regards to sort of New World cigars, the kind of the competitiveness across the markets?
So a couple of things. I don't know if you know or you've heard me in other interviews. I just truly abhor the term New World cigars. I just loathe it.
Okay, no, that's fair enough.
And I'll tell you why, because every cigar producing nation, I got so serious all of a sudden, is really unique. And what you're doing is you're still bifurcating non-Cubans and Cubans. You just have quippy little marketing buzzword bingo kind of term to label it. But the fact of the matter is Honduras, Nicaragua is Nicaragua, the Dominican Republic is the Dominican Republic. Jamaica at one point in time, especially for the UK market, by the way, was one of the biggest cigar producers. They're all unique. They all have different terroir. It's like saying, you can say New World and Old World cigars, or rather wines. But the fact of the matter is people now say New Zealand or Australian or American, or more importantly, Californian, Oregon, and Washington. It's the same with cigars. You have to give each country or each terroir or each region its due. And the fact of the matter is, New World is erroneous. It's imperialist. It's colonialist, but it's also just wrong. I mean, Cuba and the Dominican Republic or Hispaniola in general, is 350 miles apart. That's pretty new. And Columbus hit both islands on his original voyage. So it's a thing, but I'm totally getting sidetracked, as one is wont to do.
Yeah.
It's a bad term. We got to come up with something better. And I don't think there is anything better than just saying.
If I'm honest, I don't think non-Cuban's any better, because I just think it's a bit.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It needs to be designated by individual countries. In other words, a Dominican cigar, you talk about exclusive or hard to get. Let's talk about Dominican cigars for a second. Special cigars, if you want. Cigars that would satisfy a Cuban cigar smoker's palate. You have obviously the entire Opus X series, of which there are many different variations and iterations and versions. You have obviously the Davidoffs, the limited edition, or the just supremely limited produced Davidoffs. You have La Flor Dominicanas. I don't know if you guys get those in the UK. Yeah. And then, of course, you have in Nicaragua, most famously Patron. And then, you have, again, cigars made here in the US, like the La Polina Goldie, which is exceedingly rare. And really all their shapes are Cuban shapes. So, or vitolas, if you want to be technical about it all. And so I think there are many ways you can satisfy it. There's no two ways about it. As traditional European markets like London and Madrid and Paris and Geneva get squeezed for Cuban cigars that are now going to China and going to Dubai and elsewhere, they're going to have to turn to other product. But the level and standard of quality in the Dominican and Nicaragua is already far surpassed. You kind of joked about it before, but it's not nothing. If you're paying $1,000 or £1,000 for a box of Cohibas, and 4 or 5 of those cigars are plugged,
yeah,
you're not going to be too happy. You don't have that problem, but the Dominican, Nicaraguan, and Honduran factories are faced with all the same challenges that the Cuban factories are, in that, there's supply chain issues, there's shipping issues, and there's back orders from the pandemic days. And so the markets, or the manufacturing countries that normally satisfy the United States, are only going to be able to export so much to the UK and the EU. And I just think that's going to be an ongoing problem. Davidoff has always had a very international position and proposition because they're based in Switzerland. But for everybody else, it's a thing. I know that finding an Opus X in London right now is tantamount to like a Behiki 54. It's just near impossible. And you're going to pay dearly for it.
I have a Behiki 54 and a box of Opus X in my basement.
Well, you're you, and I'm me. I can say the same thing, but nobody likes a braggart, Tom. Nobody.
No. I'm afraid that's what Cigar Keep was entirely built on, this idea of kind of bragging rights. But interestingly, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on Cigar Keep as a sort of concept. And I'm presuming
you're not hitting me up for money as an investor, are you? It's like, because Way has way more money. So I'm just if he hasn't bought his 15th unique crash, that is.
No.
Well, I love it. It's there's always a braggadocio element to cigar keepers. And my father had a saying, and I actually think I put it in the dedication of the Impossible Collection of Cigars. I can't quite recall, but I believe I did.
Yeah.
Not because of the COVID brain fog, just old fog. Just I can't remember what.
Yeah.
Right. I had a philosophy that he was a collector. He was a consummate collector, but he was also a consumer in that he enjoyed what he purchased. So he collected wines and he thought that wine should be shared and drunk. He collected cigars, but he smoked them and he shared them with friends and colleagues. And he collected cars and he thought that they should be driven. They shouldn't just be put up on a pedestal or in a garage and just kind of oohed and awed and looked at as sculpture, I suppose. And I very much take that. So I love the overall concept of cigar keepers. And I myself, by virtue of the number of cigars I possess, could be considered a true collector. But the fact of the matter is, none of those cigars, with the single rarest exceptions, are so precious that if you came over to my house for a bottle of wine or a cocktail and you said, I want to smoke XYZ, we would light it up and I wouldn't give a second thought about it.
Yeah, I do actually agree with that. And I think that cigar smokers are inherently fairly social as a crowd, and they like to they don't like to hoard as much as we think, because I think you can create a great collection. But I think you're right. If somebody who you knew would appreciate it came round, you would break out what you want to show them. And I think that that's part of the joy of it.
I had a friend of mine come over for his birthday the other day, and first thing he asked me was, do you have any Siglo 6s? I said, of course. And I said, is that what you want for your birthday? He's like, I really do. I've never had one. Done. It wasn't even, that's what they're there for. One of my favorite things is I love carrying a 3-fingered cigar case.
Yeah.
Because my philosophy is very simple with the 3-fingered cigar case. One cigar for me, one cigar for you, and one cigar to trade. And that's always my philosophy with the 3-fingered case.
I think
it's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's a very good one.
One to share, one for yourself, and then one to barter with, for lack of a better description.
I think that's great. Or if you have no one to barter with, you just take it home at the end of the day and everything's fine.
Right. Yeah, I'm not giving them away like candy, but if there's a reason, it's why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Super. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to say about sort of the kind of American culture with regards to cigars and celebration?
Well, we're still, we're in an up market right now, and that continues to be so. America is such a dedicated, the US is just such a hugely dedicated cigar market, and just always has been, really since the commercialization of cigars. And I think that's rather remarkable in today's political environment that cigars have just really kind of stayed out there. When I did Smoke Magazine, which was my original magazine back in the 90s on cigars, everyone said it was a fad, it was a trend, it was this, and it was to the level of popularity that it had. But everything's cyclical. Everything waxes and wanes. For instance, your teddy bear jumper, since we're in the UK, one day will not be as fashionable as it is today. I think that's the inherent nature of everything. Look at bourbon, and I will use this a very specific example. It took the Japanese export market to save American bourbon, and look at where bourbon is today.
Yeah,
I think that's a prime example. And at one point in time, rye and bourbon, corn mash, whiskey were, the standard here in the United States. Rye no longer is, but you will see an uptick in rye at some point in time. Rye whiskey will come back. It's always cyclical in nature, and that's just the inherent, nature of all of these things. Just like double-breasted suits or 3-button suits or a particular watch or a watch size. We cover all these things in what we write about, and it's just all these things kind of go around on a merry-go-round or, a carousel.
Super. Thank you very, very much, Aaron Sigmond.
Thank you.
Great pleasure.